August 4th, 1693. Dom Perignon invents champagne. The next day, he invents calling out of work. Welcome to The Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
And our guest is a returning friend of the show, brilliant, one of my favorite comics in Denver, sweet, sweet boy, Ben Bryant.
Hello.
Everyone.
That's very flattering. You need better taste.
Oh, that's true in so many ways.
I think it's been a good few years. I hate to say that we've been doing this podcast for literally years of our lives.
No, that's cool.
But I think it's been a couple of years since Ben's been on the podcast, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, you were on for Lafayette, the American Revolution.
That would have been shortly before I moved away from Denver.
Yeah.
Wow.
We've all aged horribly.
Oh, God, I have. Wear sunscreen, everyone. It's so important. It's so fucking
Also,
We're
important.
all just
pro
three
tip.
California raisins here.
Just don't live in a time when Donald Trump is president, because it ages you very quickly.
Don't use any sort of media at all. Consume nothing.
Twitter especially.
Yeah.
Age advisory on Twitter. You will age so quickly, wasting away your life arguing with Mike Chernovich about James Gunn.
I know someone who's spent their life in an iron lung, and they look so good right now. Listeners, if you're new to the show, what we do each episode is we tell you how horrible the world is, and then we take
Briefly,
a topic from history.
And then we tell you how the world used to be worse, basically.
I don't know. This seems pretty fucking bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is it's giving history a run for its money. We take a topic
That's
from
the
history.
Slogan for the present. Giving history a run.
At some
for
point,
its
history
money.
has to end. Why not now? It can. This can be the end. It's as good a time as any. At least I get to see it.
Yeah. Why go out on top? Why not go out?
Yeah, you don't want to be one of those dumb motherfuckers who died after Empire came out, but before Jedi, and it's like, you loser.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
died in 1983 like an idiot.
One person presents the actual version of events, and another person presents a crazy batshit alternate history. And then the winner gets to become the truth. Going forward,
But Brian, this may seem a little out of season, but I feel like I hear a soft jingle jangling of chains and bones in the wind. Because even though it is not Shocktober yet, I feel like we have a long lead up to Shocktober in a very special turn of events.
we are just doing the long Halloween because life is a horror show.
Yeah, of course, the famous Batman graphic novel, The Long Halloween, which chronicles the origin of Two-Face. We'll be presenting all the possible origins of, I guess, the Joker.
I haven't read that one in a very long time.
Wow.
But we are doing a special limited series of episodes where we will be taking a look at a different suspect in the Jack the Ripper murders. And then at the end, we will have a large vote, and the winner of the vote will be the canonical story of Jack the Ripper and who they may be if we decide.
So, clarify for me. The big vote at the end, is it going to be an 8-way vote between the 4 true histories and the 4 alternate histories?
Yes, basically. So only one story will become the canonical truth going forward.
All right.
So it'll
Fair
be
enough.
a big old clusterfuck.
You got to remember a lot of episodes, everyone. You got to remember 4 episodes of lore, 4 episodes of truth.
So realistically, what's going to happen is whatever the last episode we record, whoever tells the second story, that person is going to win because people are like, yeah, I remember that one.
That's a good point.
I'm sorry to say, Ben, when that poll goes up, you're going to be like a month in the rear view and no one is going to remember.
We're going to put out a special little recap before the voting starts.
Wait,
So-
am I the first one? Mm-hmm. Fucking bullshit. Gerrymandering horseshit.
Gerrymander. Yeah, this is
Fucking
exactly what
recount.
gerrymandering is.
Give me a fucking recount, you interfering.
There cannot be a recount. There hasn't been a count yet.
I
do like
a
Brian's
recount.
idea of a clip show because as little work as we put into this podcast, that means even less work.
I like that you called it clip show also because it makes me think of most 90s sitcoms clip shows. And I want to find a way we can structure it like that, where we're all trapped in the same pantry or something.
Yeah, you and I will be like, it'll be whatever catastrophe is going on in the world at that time. We'll be living in a fallout shelter and reminiscing about recent episodes.
Which you can use to promote your new sponsor, Fallout. I don't know, what's the new Fallout bullshit?
Yeah,
76 or whatever the fuck?
Yeah. God, if we could get them, that would be amazing.
Just email them.
Ubisoft, hit me up. Speaking of voting.
That's Bethesda, by the way.
Oh, well.
Nintendo,
sorry,
hit me
Bethesda.
up. Crash Bandicoot, you have my number.
Paperboy, I'm waiting by the phone. Speaking of voting, our previous mega episode, The Titanic, we left that in the hands of our listeners, and I can now report that the alternate history where the Titanic was a pleasure cruise that was abducted by aliens and all of the poor people on board got to live a life of leisure on an alien planet.
Oh.
That
You're saying
alternate
people-
history won out.
People didn't vote for the version where 1,500 poor people were locked in a room slowly flooding with water to die?
And dogs.
And dogs.
The fictional
And
version
cats.
sounds a lot like
Cats brought on board to catch the mice also.
And the mice brought on board to eat the flies.
Of course, yeah.
That
and,
fictional version sounds a lot like Scientology mixed with the Mormon doctrine.
Yep, that is... I can report that is a pretty accurate description of how that was conceived.
We didn't mention Xenu by name, but I think it was alluded to. I think we all knew what we were reading between the lines on that one.
Yeah, anything with a ship, there's an implicit Xenu.
the implicit Xenu.
Yeah,
Of
I think
course.
after the hero's journey, I think Campbell wrote implicit Xenu to describe every narrative in Western culture.
Hey there, this is Brian, reminding you that The Revisionist is supported by listeners just like you. You can make a pledge and get rewards like shirts and even the right to vote over at patreon.com/therevisionists.
Listeners, we're going to get started with our first Jack the Ripper suspect. A little fella who goes by the name of Montague John Druitt? I think that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah, that looks correct. Druitt.
But Zach, you're doing the true story.
Correct. And I feel as though, because this is the first episode, I should also give a little bit of filler on old Jackie the Ripper. So, for all of you idiots who have never heard of Jack the Ripper, the most
retard.
famous murderer who ever done lived.
Stupid cocksuckers.
Yeah. Just... I hate to say this, Ben, but we have the stupidest fucking audience. They don't know shit. They don't know their
Mongoloid
fucking
popsicle
shoe
lickers.
from a fucking... I don't know where I'm going with that. I think there's a phrase that's shit from Shinola. Is that where I'm going with it?
They don't know shit from Shinola.
There we go.
Yeah.
I don't know that phrase, so
Yeah, you
I'm
don't
not
know
much
shit
better
from
than them.
canola oil.
Anyways, Jack the Ripper, of course, was a serial killer who was active in Whitechapel, the East End of London, in about 1888, possibly through 1891, depending on how many murders were actually his doing and how many were not.
Mm-hmm.
Basically,
Xenu murders.
Yeah. The rest were the implicit Xenu in all of us.
the implicit Xenu, of
Casualty
course, who
being
quits
in a city.
Just
most
too
of the
many
murder.
Thetans, baby.
We should note at the time, Whitechapel was an area that had a huge influx recently of Irish immigrants and Jewish immigrants, escaping mostly pogroms in Russia, but also anti-Semitism elsewhere in Europe. So there was a huge influx of poor immigrants to that area in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And because every time there's a situation where there's people in extreme poverty, as well as it was already the poorest one of the poorest neighborhoods in London before that. So anytime there's a situation of extreme poverty, obviously, there's an increase in crime. And when you have new immigrants, surprisingly, people also assume an area is unsavory or terrible because, well, they're racist or xenophobic or anti-Semitic.
Not xenophobic, which is a different
Very
thing.
valid way to be.
Yeah, not xenophobic, of course. The implicit xenophobia of us all.
Discriminate against Scientologists. Don't give them houses. I'm saying that on the air.
I really want to go to my next protest with a sign that says xenophobia, not xenophobia. With a picture of Tom Cruise with a slash through it. But who am I kidding? I'm still going to see Mission Impossible Fallout 76.
Yeah, as long as you just like assassinate a senator, you can go see Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Hey, there's plenty of senators who would be... I don't want to finish that sentence.
No, yeah, notice I didn't name a party. Keeping it real oblique for the FBI.
Yeah, nobody who listens to this podcast could possibly pick up on our political leanings.
Anyway,
Regardless,
welcome to Chapo Trap House. This is
God, I would love to be a host
whatever
of
the
that.
name of that fucking guy, like, I get some of their politics, but those are the most irritating human beings on the planet Earth.
Who cares? They make $100,000 a month.
Which
I'll say
kind of goes
anything to
against
anybody.
hey, their whole, like, aesthetic of, you know, regular Joes sticking it to the man when they're making fucking $1 million a year. But what are you going to do? Regardless, in 1888, this was a bad neighborhood. There was a lot of, substance addiction. There was a lot of prostitution, the things that go with any low-income neighborhood, regardless of, religious or racial background.
A lot of
that
pawn
stuff
shops.
just exactly so. Yeah, that stuff just kind of pops up, and it was also kind of a time where newer, cheaper newspaper, like newspapers were easier to spread. They were cheaper to make, and so the access to news was higher than it ever had been before, which kind of led to this thing that despite Jack the Ripper not being the first serial killer, he was the first serial killer with real media fucking presence.
The kid had clout.
Yeah, exactly so.
His original Vine star.
original Instagram celebrity. That's why there's so many Jack the Ripper butt shots circling around.
Between 1888 and 1891, there were 11 Whitechapel murders. Now, three of these were pretty much definitely Jack the Ripper. 5 of them were 90% probably Jack the Ripper. And the other 6 are kind of vaguely Jack the Ripper, possibly. There was another 6 murders on top of that don't really fit that are even more outside the accepted modus operandi and location of Jack the Ripper. The last one being a New York murder in 1891. Some people think that he relocated to New York, but the official interrogator in New York discounted that theory. So we may hear about it more in later episodes. But specifically, the 2nd through 6th Whitechapel murders are the ones that are considered the canonical 5 Jack the Ripper murders. The first one was a woman who survived for a day and said she was assaulted by a gang of people. So probably not the Ripper. But they all had very similar deaths. And they all occurred within the span of about 3 months, from August 31st, 1888 to November 8th, 1988.
I hate when people are more prolific than me. Get so much done. That's how you make a 25 under 25 list. Is you gotta just grind for months and months and months.
Yeah.
3 murders a day for 6, or wait, no, 3.
3 murders a day.
What's the kind of 3 beats a day for 3 summers? 5 beats a day?
I think that's just Kanye.
You gotta kill people. That's what I'm saying.
You want to get that money. Step 1, murder prostitutes. Step 2, question. Step 3, get that money. Regardless, and 4 of them all happened within a single 30-day span between August 31 and September, I guess it was a 31-day span, and September 30th, 1888. And the fifth one, which is one of the ones that may not have been Jack the Ripper, was 6 weeks later. So basically all the victims had a similar means of death. They had their throat slit from left to right first, and then their abdomens were stabbed, and a few organs were semi-surgically removed from their abdominal area. 2 of the murders occurred on the same night and were found about 45 minutes apart. The first one did not have her organs from her abdominal area removed, but it's speculated that the Ripper may have been interrupted and in frustration attacked another person. Though there's also a letter where a few days before that, somebody claimed there was going to be a, quote, double event coming up. Mm-hmm. So it's possible it was planned. The fifth one was mutilated more heavily. The one that also may not be one of the Ripper murders, but is commonly considered one of the canonical 5, was more heavily mutilated. She was almost completely decapitated and disemboweled. Her heart was removed, like much more...
Pretty horrifying.
Much more so than the other 4. Just eviscerated, pretty
Sometimes
much.
You gotta release an album that just goes harder than the others, you know?
Yeah.
It's just... some you do for the people, some you gotta do for you.
Some of the other killings that are sometimes attributed to him include strangulations that may have been even accidents in one case. One case was a young boy who was had a similar means of death, but otherwise didn't fit at all.
Young boys always getting themselves choked.
Yeah. There was 3 women who were killed in various areas across London, one of which was killed in the same area where Jack the Ripper operated in, that were dismembered, like it was just their torsos that were found. A lot of people believe that was a second serial killer operating at the same time, sometimes called the torso killer, because there wasn't a lot in common with the way that the Ripper killed people. Regardless,
and there are a surprising amount of people who are called the torso killer.
Really?
Yeah. Well,
there's like a Cleveland one, there's a New York one, there's a
fucking hacks. Just fucking spice up your own ass.
Yeah, it's actually
Jesus
just
Christ.
the fat Jew.
Anyways, this became a media sensation as it was spread about the newspapers and resulted in numerous letters being written to the investigators, which included a man named Aberlane, which was the head investigator of the chief investigator of the case at the time. Most of them were useless, but a few notes stand out, purportedly written by the killer himself. There was the Dear Boss letter, was the first one received. It noted a few days before one of the murders something about a cut on the ear for one of the women, and a murder that happened a few days later happened to have one of their ears removed, making some people believe it was a legitimate letter. The second one was called the Saucy Jack letter.
No.
It was actually a brochure for an Italian restaurant.
Yeah. This one had a similar handwriting style to the Dear Boss letter and mentioned something about a double event, though the context is a little vague. And it was a few days before the 2 bodies showed up in the single night, not far from one another. So some people also believe that could have been written by the actual Jack the Ripper. But the last 2 have different handwriting and are even more commonly accredited with being written by the actual Ripper. The first is the famous From Hell letter, which the Alan Moore fiction gets its name from, which is addressed from hell. It has very sloppy, loopy handwriting, unlike the other 2, and has a lot more writing and grammatical errors than the first 2. And it was famous because it included half of a kidney, a human kidney. It claimed it roasted and ate the other half of the kidney. So a lot of people believe that the kidney, since there were organs like kidneys missing from some of the victims.
That was actually originally where Blue Apron got the idea for their business model.
Fun fact, before he was called Jack the Ripper, a name they got from the Dear Boss letter, when he called himself Jack the Ripper, He was called the Whitechapel Killer and Leather Apron, which is like a proto Leatherface meets Blue Apron. Though actually, you're right. Leatherface does have kind of a Blue Apron home-cooked vibe, I guess.
Go to blueapron.com/therevisionists for your 15% off trial. Blue Apron, are you sick of cooking? I know I am. I hate the dishes. I hate my wife. Blue Apron.
Go to blueapron.com/therevisionists for a slander lawsuit.
Yeah. At Blue Apron, we have pre-portioned ingredients, so we only send you half of a kidney instead of a full one. But that might have been an anti-Semitic kind of thing because there was a Jewish butcher in the area who was known as Leather Apron. He also made leather shoes. He was interrogated and eventually cleared of the murders, but he was a suspect early on in the investigation.
How could I do the murder? I'm in here, I'm making my shoes, I'm making my apron. Get out of here, you're my sugar nut.
I'm making the apron, I'm making the shoes,
I'm making the apron. I
have no time for the murder, I have no time.
What do you want? Eat and get out, eat and get out. You look famished, come in. Have some vodka, I don't know. Stereotypes.
If I was a rich man.
The last letter was
what
written...
What does this have in common with Fiddler on the Roof?
Well, the pogroms. You've already discussed the Russian pogroms.
Oh,
so...
yeah, the
hey,
worst
maybe... What's the name of the protagonist in Fiddler on the Roof? I can't remember.
Ted Cruz.
Oh, fuck. I keep saying Zero Mostel.
I'll settle for the name of that
Tevye.
actor who has played it. Tevye, yeah. Maybe Tevye immigrated from the Russian slums to Whitechapel and went on a killing spree in the gritty sequel to Fiddler on the Roof.
You could definitely pitch
Ripper
that.
on the
Fiddler on the Roof 2, Fiddler in the Hood.
Yeah.
You could definitely get that produced at larger than community theater, I think.
Back in the 1890s, there were all those shirts, Fiddler on the Roof, Ripper on the Streets, that were so popular.
Oh, God damn it.
Regardless, obviously, the murder itself, there was a final note that was written to the coroner who inspected the kidney from the previous note that was in similar handwriting to the front.
Dear M, I see you still ain't called.
Yeah. And it had similar extreme spelling and grammar problems to the previous one. Dude didn't know how to spell knife for shit. But obviously after the last definite murder happened in late 1880, it was like a spree, and then there was a few that could have been him, but for the most part after 1891 they stopped. No one has ever ascertained the total truth about who Jack the Ripper was. It's fairly unlikely anybody ever will until this series of podcasts.
Wow.
Which will blow the roof off the mystery.
I don't know why no one has ever tried this before.
It's exciting.
Right. Podcasts were the solution the whole time. Why didn't they think of it sooner?
That's the most podcast thing anyone's ever said.
Okay, what about a Netflix series where it's two hosts and one kills the other one on the air? Like, everyone very clearly sees him kill it, and then they're like, okay, who did it? They take like 14 episodes.
So, our first suspect in our 4-suspect series is Mr. Montague John Druitt, who was a 31-year-old barrister who was the favored suspect of Mr. Melville McNaughton, who was a prominent investigator at the time, though he did not directly work on the Jack the Ripper case at the time it was going on. He later looked into it and came to the conclusion that this guy was his favorite suspect. He didn't share his name while he was alive. He was like, I'm pretty sure this guy did it, but he died late in 1888, which is, according to him, why the murders stopped. And I'm going to be straight up. I don't think this is a very compelling case for this guy's guilt.
Mm-hmm. I mean, with a lot of these suspects, there are like one or two things that like circumstantially are kind of interesting, but there's part of the reason it's never been solved is that like there's not a lot that is like totally convincing for anyone.
Part of the problem is, and a lot of people think that the knowledge of being a butcher or being a surgeon was something that was a facet or a necessary aspect of the Jack the Ripper case. Nowadays, I feel like I think a lot of people feel like, even at the time, there was some disagreement about that, where people thought just about anybody could probably do these rudimentary level of removal of organs. Though I will say this for the police at the time, while they were roundly mocked, their method of investigating the crime, which was interviews en masse based on certain identifying or suspicious criteria, and then gradually eliminating suspects and narrowing them down, was emulated for a long time to come for a lot of investigations.
Rather than the previous method of consulting chicken bones?
I mean, police work sucked at the time.
Yeah.
They did... It claims they did forensics evidence, and I don't know what that means, except they looked at it and was like, oh, someone's dead. I'll say this, the coroner was able to tell from which side the throat was slashed and whether the throat slashing occurred before the evisceration, and they used some of that to winnow down their searches. Regardless, back to Montague John Druitt, who I just think was a sad dude. A lot of McNaughton's notes on this guy are written from memory and are wrong. He lists him as being 41 at the time of his death. That's not true. He was 31. And he notes him being an apprentice doctor or butcher or something. Not true. He was studying law and a teacher. Though members of his family were doctors. He also claims that some of his family believed him to be the Ripper. There's no corroboration for that claim whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So this was a guy who was in roughly the area at the time. He was in southeast London, and he was schoolmaster at a boarding school. Basically, about in November, at the end of November, which was after the last of the canonical 5 murders happened, he was suddenly dismissed from the school. Now, why he was dismissed is unclear, but it was apparently some kind of scandal. My guess would be, I don't know if sleeping with a student was a problem at the time, but absolutely maybe not. That.
They encouraged.
They had not invented
consent.
Regardless, why this man was disbarred is unclear. I couldn't find any specific reason for why he was kicked out from his position at this boarding school. But a month later, on December 31st... and this was part of McNaughton's thing. He said he was in an unright state of mind at this point in his life that culminated in him being fired, and then on December 31st, killing himself by jumping in the Thames, where he was, found dead. But I don't... Apparently, witness reports don't have him acting extremely unusually at this time. He was still studying as normal. He was presenting himself as normal. I imagine he was severely depressed, maybe. But I don't see any reason to believe this man was homicidally crazy. And there's no evidence he went ever to the area where the Ripper suspects ever occurred.
Sorry, when you talk about him getting fired from the school, I do picture Robin Williams in Dead Poets Society.
Yeah. He was too inspirational for his students.
Wait, you mean I can go and kill a bunch of prostitutes? Yeah! I just had to believe!
Yeah,
it was
also, Ben's voice gives it away. He was an elementary school teacher.
I'm studying to be a doctor to fix my voice.
Like a Dexter situation where he taught somebody to be the torso killer after he was gone.
Yeah, but, in Saw. Spoiler alert. Shit.
This man was eventually... He jumped to the Thames. He was found dead. I don't think there was a great deal of reason to believe he was the Whitechapel killer. The man who was actually in charge of the investigation at the time... whose name I forgot, but I said earlier.
Began with an A, something like that.
Abigail.
Yeah. Abington or
the band
Aberline. Inspector Aberline had considered him and did not believe him to be the killer. He discounted him as a possible suspect.
He's probably also not the killer because, if you're gonna get, if you're gonna lose your job, you're not gonna, and you're a killer, you're not gonna fucking kill yourself. You're gonna kill way harder.
Yeah.
You're gonna go and kill everyone at your job.
He stopped after he was discharged. All the murders happened before he was discharged.
So he was so stressed out. It was like, I just have to quit. Man, I need a Snickers bar. I was not myself.
There
Losing
is
that
some
job was the best thing that ever happened because it gave him the impetus he needed to.
Now, I think McNaughton was not all there in his later life. He was a great investigator earlier, but I think maybe he started grasping at straws a little bit. Mm-hmm. He also thought this guy was connected to an attempted assassination of a Chancellor of Ireland who went on to become Prime Minister.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Named Balfour. And some people believe, I think this is probably an also pretty out there theory, that McNaughton himself was the killer and he spread these fake suspects to cast blame away from himself. Mm-hmm. I haven't read too deeply into that. I don't know if there's a lot of... I think it's probably just one of those things where people are like, but what if...
Right.
What if on Earth 618, McNaughton was Jack the Ripper?
Yeah, Miles Morales is actually the Ripper.
Mm-hmm. But a much cooler Ripper. A Ripper for the 21st century.
100% right and put that out.
I can't wait until we get the Miles Morales Jack the Ripper and all like the fucking alt-right fanboys are like, the Ripper's white. We all know the Ripper's white.
Do you guys think Santa's white or black?
Oh, boy.
That's what I brought you all here to discuss. We'll finally get to the fucking meat of it. Santa is definitely...
Turkish.
Arabic?
He is Turkish, so...
Yeah.
Also, not real.
Santa's whatever you want him to be.
Yeah,
he's like
whatever...
the Doctor from Doctor Who.
Yeah, he's all these forms. He's regenerated to every race and gender except for straight white male. Never been one.
Yeah. Makes you think.
Regardless, I'm glad I had to do the introduction about the real story of Jack the Ripper that we do know for a fact, because... that's kind of all there is to Mr. Montague John Druitt.
Yeah, it's really sort of just like the stuff that McNaughton thought was true about him that turned out not to be.
Right.
And sort of the timing of his suicide.
Right. That's the most damning thing. His firing and his suicide kind of match up with the events of the murder, but beyond that, like... it just seems circumstantial.
Fired for unknown reasons allows people to write in whatever horrible
your
thing.
imagination could go wild with why.
Like he walked into class and was like, "Okay, kids, I'm going to teach you how to be Jack the Ripper."
Yeah. McNaughton thought he was a horrible sexual deviant of some kind, and frankly, the Jack the Ripper murders. Some of the Whitechapel murders had sexual aspects, but the ones that are canonically Jack the Ripper did not have any actual sexual assault aspect, proving that in the 1800s, even murders were more wholesome than they are today. But, yeah, so I just don't... I personally don't see the John Montague Druitt. Maybe I'm sabotaging my own vote at the end of this thing for the real John Montague.
We'll have more chances for our...
But that's the true primer of Jack the Ripper and the story of, in my opinion, unlikely suspect Montague John
sad
Druitt.
Boy Montague Druitt. With a name like Montague Druitt, it's gonna be sad.
Yeah,
he would have had a great name for a serial killer. All of his pictures, he just looks very sad in all the pictures he's in.
Yeah, but how often do you see like a happy picture from the 1800s?
Yeah. Yeah, because everyone's got syphilis.
Yeah, from all that no condom fucking. Or protection was just yelling at her. Better not get pregnant.
Yeah, you yell the venereal disease away from your genitals. Get out of here. Just you bang a broom on the ground right before climax.
So are you guys telling me you've never, ever just brushed sage over your girlfriend's downstairs? Is that what you're telling me?
That's the future. Yeah, this is... I'm showing Ben pictures of Montague Druitt.
Oh, he's kind of handsome.
Yeah, he's
kind of handsome. I like his one. He's got one where he got his hand on his chin and he just looks fucking sad. And I kind of feel sorry. This is just a dude who killed himself because he was depressed. And like then later, this asshole cop was like, "Yeah, I bet that dude killed 5 people."
Yeah,
that real. Sounds like Cops.
That would be a good like album cover for like a SoundCloud rapper.
Zach, thank you.
Of course.
Okay.
Every week, Denver's own Real Nerds podcast sees a new movie and we podcast our experience to the world.
I think sometimes we're funny.
Yeah, sometimes when I'm talking, not when you're talking, not when you're talking.
Oh,
you know, it might help if you told them that we're on iTunes or we're on Stitcher so they could find a place there you can actually listen to us.
Oh, okay, Brad. We're also on Twitter at Real Nerds, and we have an Instagram account. Boom. Commercial, Brad. Cut, paste, upload. We like to have fun.
Sure. I like fun.
James, you're very bad at improv. RealNerdsPodcast.com.
Here, Jesus Christ. While Brian's coughing, we'll all cough too.
Yeah, cover my coughing. Thank you.
Covered it
feel
with
more
louder
comfortable.
coughing, yeah. Directly into Mike.
Oh, we got a pop shield. I got a pop shield.
I don't.
Well, but it's only your mic, though, right? Uh-oh.
Yeah.
No, we can't see you now.
Yeah, sorry, I was adjusting something on Audacity.
The sun is going down here, so
I
my
know.
face
I was
is...
going to say, it's slowly getting darker in Chicago, and our video feed of Zach has gone from like a full view of a room to just Zach's floating head.
Yeah, you
Well,
look like a naughty
fortunately,
cam girl.
no serial killers have ever operated in the city of Chicago, including
That is also the most depressing cam girl I've conceived.
including extremely unlikely Jack the Ripper suspect H.H. Holmes. Did we do an episode about him?
Not
previous?
yet, but Shocktober is coming up. Although for Shocktober after Jack the Ripper, might want to do things that are not more serial killers.
I just know that some very fringe people believe that H.H. Holmes and Jack the Ripper were the same person, but it's not a very well substantiated theory.
No.
Huh. So many theories.
Speaking of theories, Ben, whenever you're ready. That's it. That's your turn.
The nice thing about this, and I mean, luckily what I'm about to say is all true, is that because the theories on this are so batshit, that as soon as I say this, it's going to lightly enter the Jack the Ripper canon,
Yeah.
at least for conspiracy theorists online. So the Jack the Ripper
by the way,
murders
if I could
happened
say-
in the late 1880s to 1890s, and as we all know, the 1880s and 1890s was a lot like the 1980s and 90s. It was just like about like attitude and just like having fun and just like doing blow.
We've all seen the 1880s throwback Stranger Things with an E on the end of both of the words.
And like when people are having that much fun, if you've seen any horror movie, you know that people having fun have to die. So a bunch of murders started happening, and people were like, "Oh, it's rad," but it was like too many murders. Like, oh, it's not as rad.
Yeah, I chill with the murders. Yeah.
There were a lot of suspects. The first was Rad Tony. He skateboarded a lot, but he would always walk around, and he had big dreams. He'd be like, "I'm gonna serial kill 5 people, and then maybe 4 more, and then like maybe another 3. It's gonna be unclear."
Yeah, between 3 and 17 people, he said.
Feel like, "Oh, Rad Tony, put your head out of the clouds, man." You know, and Rad Tony was like one of those like village characters, because there's no cities. Even in London, it was a village back then. And people were always like, they're going up to Rad Tony, and they were like, "Hey, Rad Tony, you kill anybody lately?" And he's like, "Here's this note I have." But everyone was
The
just
Rad
like,
Tony note, of course. Everybody remembers from their...
Yeah,
Jack
all
the
his
Ripper
S's
book.
are done in the fucking...
And I also understand, didn't Rad Tony have the end of his skateboard sharpened to a point so he could do a kickflip and slit your throat at the same time?
yeah, it was exceptionally dangerous, but unfathomably rad.
Yeah.
Everyone knows danger and radness are a one circle Venn diagram.
He was the coolest butcher in town, because like when he killed a pig, it looked awesome. Ollie and or bacon.
But like the Rad Tony theory has kind of fallen out of favor with a lot of people, because like some recently released Saved by the Bell DVDs came out that kind of like passively exonerated, because at the time he was dating Topanga, and Topanga doesn't like serial killers, and
One of her most memorable traits.
you know, killing's great, but like Topanga's butt is like even better. So there were a lot of rumors that it could be Corey in the house, because I'm losing track of the timeline here already. God damn it. But Rad Tony was one of the prevailing theories until Rad Tony was at the 1880s X Games, and then a murder happened while he was on stage.
Okay.
So the cops, who also, all the cops back then, all they wanted to do was shut down ski resorts where the kids were.
Wait, ski resorts?
Yep.
Okay.
And if you wanted anything from the police back then, you had to challenge them to some variety of, challenge, like fiddle contest, snowboard race, rap battle.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say
that was
fiddle
most of the
contest or
justice system. It
chess
was,
match.
Bad. It was a lot of battle-based justice. And I don't mean trial by combat, like I said, like beatboxing stuff, chili cook-offs, pussy eating contest. They didn't have
Lip
pussy back
syncing
then.
for your
So yeah, the police were kind of stumped until 1890s hero Madonna came out with a whole published report. It was very easy to read. It was extremely clear who did it, but she's a lady, so no one listened, which is fucked up. So she had to just put herself in a cryo chamber. And then she came out about another 100 years later and invented voguing, which is great.
And, wrote the worst James Bond theme.
And wait, what? I didn't know
She
Madonna
wrote
wrote a James Bond theme.
Which one was
The
it?
Die Another Day theme, which is
What?
fucking awful, where she's like, analyze this, Sigmund Freud. It's the worst fucking song. It's terrible.
Die Another Day's a Brosnan, right?
The Last Brosnan, yeah.
Oh, that's wrong. Well, I've long said that Madonna's a better investigator than singer, and
It's true, she hung up her gumshoes, and it's really we've got all these cold cases.
but so yeah, I mean the knowledge of the real murderer is out there. It's just in Madonna's case, but no one really seems to read it. You can just find it at her house. She's got it hanging up, but she wanted
her two books were Sex and Jack the Ripper.
and
She
yeah, I mean,
poses
that's
nude
just-
in both of them for some reason.
So it's tough with this kind of stuff because, like I said, it's just a lot of theory. But Madonna definitely has the best theory. It was, I don't know, it was a rad time. It was crazy times. Here's what you guys should do to really make it 1880s. You should just have me smoke opium and then just think about, like, all right, so what do you really think happened with Jack the Ripper?
This is the fourth time you've asked me to let you smoke opium on or off the air. I know your game.
And you blew it because now in every intervening episode, we're going to have opium and laudanum for the guests. And you missed out, man.
Fun.
Yeah, I gotta call craft services.
I was talking to somebody who was in like Amsterdam, and they did actually smoke like legit old opium, and apparently it's not as like hard, like as much of a high as like current opiates, but like, man, I would totally do that. The like OG like Sherlock Holmes type shit.
Yeah, they walk
I'm sure
into the
that-
fucking opium den like, yo, give me that Sherlock Holmes strain.
Yeah, dude. That's why McDonough
sure
got
that-
so bad at investigating. He stopped smoking opium.
Stop smoking. Of course,
I imagine
we all know
that they've-
opiates make you sharper, more aware, more alive to investigate.
I think they just make you chiller, and so suspects are more willing to be like, yeah, I did it.
I imagine that smoking opium is like if you've ever done Vicodin or Oxycontin, and when I say done, I hope I mean have been medically prescribed. But I imagine it's just a less good version of that because I'm sure they've refined that shit over the past 100 years
Yeah, that's
and made
apparently,
it more
like, pretty much what
addictive
it
to
is.
middle
It's like-
America.
It's the difference between like a swag like joint and like ripping dabs.
Exactly so, yeah. I think that's probably what it's like.
Anyway, send this podcast opium. The revisionist.
Yeah, thank you to our sponsor,
Oxycontin.
Oxycontin.
Send it to P.O. Box
sponsor, the
1234, 304 Fake Street, Anytown, USA, 80085.
Well, that's my actual zip code. No, it's not.
Ben, thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Listeners, before we move on, I just want to mention that The Revisionist is a proud member of the Denver Podcast Network, along with such shows as Motherfucker in a Cape.
What?
Yeah, it's a really awesome show with a great title. that looks at geek culture and talks with creators who from marginalized groups, people of color, women, LGBTQ, disabled creators.
That is cool.
It's a really awesome show. So check that out. Motherfucker in a Cape. Also, we ask that you review this podcast on your podcast service of choice, which is mad helpful. Said that slightly
Is that
Italian,
supposed to
don't
be
know
like
why.
a Cockney accent for the theme of the show?
Oh, I
Mad
wasn't
helpful.
going Cockney. I was going Italian.
Okay.
Kind of, you missed the hand gesture. It was hiding.
It's hard to catch the audio of a hand gesture.
Yeah, just the whoosh of the wind going past the mic. Also, you can connect with us via our website, revisionistpodcast.com, and social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Ben, you host a brand new Bouncing Baby podcast.
I do. It's called Page 69. It's really good. Please, please, please check it out if you enjoyed any of my bullshit on this podcast. What we do is we open up like kind of random, like pulpy dime store novels to Page 69, and me and my fellow comedian, CJ Willard, riff on it and try and figure out what's going on in the story. It's really, really funny. I'm proud of almost nothing I do in comedy, and I'm genuinely proud of that podcast. It's really good. Please check us out. Page 69 podcast, or Page 69 or Page 69 podcast on all social media. Also, we did the podcast just to become billionaires, so please send me $1 billion.
Yeah, and opium.
And opium, which I will spend the $1 billion on a lot of opium.
But also through you are putting out a couple albums.
Yeah.
That are really, really cool projects, and I want to make sure people hear about them.
Yeah, so I run a show here in Denver called Guest List. It's a monthly showcase. We just did a 2-year album recording. For the first year anniversary, released a cassette with 40 of Denver's best comics. This year, for the 2-year anniversary, recorded about 25 plus. I think we ended up with 28 as our final number of different Denver comedians, each doing about 3 or 4 minute sets. That's just going to come out digitally. Cassettes only work if you're a vaporwave artist. Additionally, last month in June, we recorded 4 EPs. It's myself, Cody Spiker, David Rodriguez, who just did Just for Laughs, and Derek Stroop, who is hilarious. Please check those out. That'll be available later this year through Middle Name Records, and we'll put that on like Spotify and stuff this time. I wanted to keep the first one underground. The second one we're going to release a little more digitally, a little more accessible.
Hell yeah. So look forward to that. That's going to be awesome, and kudos to you for putting that together. That was
Thank you.
Really cool.
Thank you.
Zach, you and I both wanted to remind listeners of something very important coming up.
Yeah, this is coming out in early August. We're getting an early start on Shocktober. But the most scary thing about Shocktober is that if we find ourselves there and you have not registered to vote, it could be too late. So, so basically you have 60 days, probably, depending on your state, to register to vote. I think the midterms are going to be pretty important this year. So,
fucking vote.
I would say if you have not registered or you need to register in a new state, like I do, go to usa.gov/register-to-vote. That link should be in our show notes, or a similar link.
Yes.
And it shouldn't take more than a few minutes. Most states have online registration. But yeah, you have 60 days to register for this upcoming midterms elections for most states in the country. So I imagine if you haven't yet, get on it, listeners.
Seriously, vote. Register and vote. And if you don't vote, buy a gun. And if you don't buy a gun, learn how to make some bombs, or as I call them, opinion hearers.
And the good news about buying a gun is you don't need to register for anything.
That's super true. It's way easier. So, and if you think that's fucked up, register to vote and then vote about it. But in the meantime,
Vote about it.
And even, I'll say this, even if you're in a, what's called like a safe district, or a district that has a predestination for like who's going to be their senator, local elections matter, especially in terms of upholding, if the Supreme Court overturns shit, people in your local courts will be the ones saying your state still has the right to
Insert your favorite right here.
ensure, women's or gay rights, or any right that's not related to a white man, mostly a rich white man.
So
Your local people are going to be upholding that if anything goes bad.
Yeah, and also voting for good people on the local level affects people's lives pretty directly.
Yeah.
So
Get into metalworking and learn how to build a working guillotine so we can drag the rich out by their collars and execute them publicly and live stream it on Twitch.
I was just at a recording of a podcast talking about Tale of Two Cities. So yeah.
You don't even need to be good at making a guillotine. The weight does more of the work than the blade itself.
Yeah.
And if you believe we shouldn't execute the rich, you're not paying attention.
It's as easy as tying two 15-pound weights to either side of an axe and dropping it on the ground.
That's it. Really good point. Steal from your local 24-hour fitness. No one needs those 15 pounds anyway. You're not getting enough of a workout. Do some social good with 15-pound weights.
As for me, listeners, I co-host Queen City Companion the first Thursday of every month at Mutiny Information Cafe. It's an all-false storytelling show. Check that out. And I have a brand new show coming to the Comedy Room in Denver.
Yeah.
Called Know Your Shit. The third Saturday of every month, starting in September.
Hell yeah.
It's comedy TED Talks, basically, on a different theme each month.
Nice.
And it's going to be a lot of fun. So check that out. Since we're not really doing judgment for each episode until the ending, that'll do it for us.
If you think that I was right, just subscribe to page 69 on iTunes.
So
We're on other stuff too, but I didn't.
To clarify, your answer is that the real killer of the Jack the Ripper case is a secret that Madonna holds in her mind.
Yup. Awesome. Ben, thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you guys.
Zach, thank you as always.
Yep.
The slowly disappearing blood moon version of Zach's face that is now in my computer screen.
Yeah, it is getting
Oh, did you
spookier.
take your, that picture that always looks terrible on Instagram? Did I happen to be this faded out when
I
you took
didn't get it this time, so I'll probably end up drawing you.
Uh-huh. Okay.
God, it is legit terror. It looks like this
Okay.
last scene from The Witch a little
Oh,
bit.
Yeah.
I was going to
yeah.
do a different comparison. If you've seen the original 1978 Halloween, you know that part where Laurie is standing in the doorway and then Michael's face appears behind her from the darkness? Mm-hmm. It looks like that.
Yeah, exactly. Listeners, thank you for that, indulging that digression into something you couldn't see or tell what was going on.
No.
For everyone here at The Revisionists, I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm the rapidly fading Captain Howdy face of Zach Powers.
Goodbye, we love you.
Have a good time.